Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I have a super fun project for you today. Today we are going to make this fun project stretching some non-holiday dies into the holidays. This is the Woodland Critters. I love this so much. Look at all these cute critters it makes. I've made 2 other birthday cards using it. I'll link to those videos below. And then here I have this light up shaker birthday card using the shaker birthday candles. It makes 3 separate candles, 3 different sizes of gifts, plus you can turn it into a box. It's so great. I'm also using the snow globe die set, which is a phenomenal set, but really we're just using the happy holidays, right? It's helpful if you're stretching some dies to have a sentiment for the holidays. Like, look how pretty that is. I've cut it out of some gold mirror cardstock. And then we're going to use this one of the fancy rosettes a bunch of times. And then there's just a plain kind of rosette builder that I've cut a few times as well. So I've got this strip. It's a 6-inch strip and I am just accordion folding it. I found it easiest to work from the back and to use a lighter weight cardstock. 65 or 80 pound makes it a lot easier to find those score lines. So from the back, I just stick my thumb right into the score line to fold against the grain, and then the other direction folds really, really easily. And I did that on a bunch of strips, but really we need about 3.5. I've cut a handful of circles for my project. The largest are 4 inches. And so I need a rosette that's gonna go outside that 4 inches. To make sure this lines up and I don't have like halves of that sort of rosette piece at the top, I trim one off. So I now have a piece that kind of sticks up, right? The fold is going up and I connect it to a fold that's going down. And I am sort of seamlessly connecting these 2 strips for my rosette. So I'm going to do this again, right? I am trimming off the entirety of one of those tops. And then I'm going to trim off the side until I am going to be able to connect. Here I've got a piece folding up and I'm adding it to a piece folding down. So they overlap by sort of one fold, if you will. So here I have one I've already put together that uses 3 full strips of that rosette, but I know I need it bigger than that because I sort of held it up against my 4-inch circle and it wasn't enough. So I'm going to add a 4th piece. Here again, I trimmed off the entirety of one of those top pieces. I'm going to add glue to the piece that folds up and tuck it behind a piece that folds down. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to do something I maybe wouldn't do if I did this all over again. I'm going to connect the whole thing in a circle. When you're making a larger rosette, you can do that and it works pretty easily. You just kind of make the whole circle and then scrunch it together. But at this point, it's so big that wasn't really necessary. And it actually is kind of hard to hold the whole thing at the same time. So I would leave those not connected. I have a 4-inch white circle out of some heavyweight cardstock, and I'm gluing a 2.5 piece of just printer paper on there because I want it to give me a guide on where to put my rosette, like how far in, so that what's sticking out from my ornament is going to be equal all the way around. I'm using hot glue to assemble this, and I'll be honest, this is the first time I busted out my glue gun in a really long time, years. You can do this without a hot glue gun. The one I showed you before, I put down some double-sided adhesive so I would have instant grab, and then I also used my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive so that when it dries, it's held really, really, really well. It just means you need more patience, right? It takes longer for it to grab. Here, I'm just adding hot glue right around that sort of 2.5-inch circle on the inside and trying to make sure the pleats are even as I'm going around. And so here I get to the end and I've got more than I need that's left. So I ended up cutting it apart anyway. So that's why I was saying I maybe wouldn't glue those together before you start. And I am just trying to make sure I'm lining up like I did before. So I'm not cutting one of those sort of flowery pieces on the top in half. I'll add a little bit more glue to sort of finish this off. Again, I'm making sure that my pleats are kind of even as I'm laying it into the glue. And then I will add a little bit of my just regular glue, my Barely Art, to connect those two pieces of the rosette. So, I mean, you can't tell a lot from the front if you don't, but this just gave it a slightly neater look. So when I flip it over, right, it's perfectly even, and that 2.5-inch circle on the back really helped me with that. I have a piece of glittery ribbon from my stash that I'm going to add to turn this into an ornament. And I am just going to put a ton of hot glue on the back. Part of it is because I want it to help create a little bit of sturdiness, but I also have just a plain rosette piece that I've accordion folded. I want to fill in that middle. I want to be able to write on this ornament later. And so if I leave that hollow, I was kind of worried about things kind of pushing in or collapsing in. You could use foam tape instead. That would absolutely work. But here, this is just a piece of scrap, and I'm sort of laying it into the middle, and I'll push it down in there with my pokey tool because it's hot. It's hot. I also have a stack of cardstock on my desk to protect my mat, right? I have like a self-healing mat, and it will warp when it gets too warm. Like my laptop gets warm enough to warp my mat. So just be aware of that. Protect your surface. I waited until all that hot glue cooled, and then I'm going to add this last layer with my Beacon 3-in-1. I was a little worried about trying to press down on that hot glue and it being too warm or ending up with lumps or anything like that. But certainly if you're more comfortable with hot glue than I am, that probably would work really well too. Okay, so now we're going to set that aside. I have the whole thing like under a stack of acrylic blocks, and we're going to work on the decorations for the front of our ornament. So I have added a piece of patterned paper. It's just got some snowfall onto some heavier weight cardstock just to thicken it up. They're both 4-inch circles. And then this piece of glitter cardstock, I am just fussy cutting a little ripply hill, right? It's not fancy. And so then I have cut, this is the deer from those Woodland Critters. I love this so much, and it's put together brilliantly. So all the pieces cut out at the same time, and they're grouped, right? One set is for the speckles on the head, one set is for the face, one set is for the pieces that go like on the body of this little deer. And so it's really easy to know what goes where, and there are debossed lines in the deer to show you where everything goes. I haven't used this one yet. It has more pieces than the other Woodland Critters in there. So if you don't want to put together this many little pieces, totally fine. Pick any of the other critters. They are so cute, you guys. Hands down, one of my favorite die sets that I own. And from the very beginning, from the time I got this set, I have been imagining all these critters with stocking caps or Santa hats or you name it, right? I've been picturing them for Christmas. I couldn't wait. Actually, I did. I waited until July. That's how far we made it. So I am just sort of dabbing little dots of glue onto the parts of this deer that have those debossed lines, so I know exactly where everything goes. And then I'm going to pick them up with my little wax tip tool here to lay them into the glue. One of the things I do when I'm cutting out really detailed pieces like this, where there's lots of little pieces, is I run the die through. I have my cardstock, okay, die, and then cardstock, and then underneath that, I have a piece of watercolor paper. It's just a scrap from something else that I cut down. It doesn't cut all the way through the watercolor paper, and it sort of holds all of those pieces in place. So I don't just have a pile of random parts. All right, so give that a try if you haven't tried that before. Sometimes I do have to loosen them up from the watercolor paper before I pick them up with my wax tool, but you know, it's still a whole lot faster and easier than trying to pick them out of a bin and figure out which dot goes where. So I'm just adding little pieces to the face to finish this up. We're almost done, real time. This deer took me 6 or 7 minutes, not that long, okay? I want to make a stocking cap. So I have a 3/4 inch circle, and I'm going to cut, I don't know, 1/3 off the bottom, and then I'm going to curve it ever so slightly on that flat edge. I have a standard hole punch, and I'm punching a circle out of some glitter cardstock, and then we're going to make like the little brim of the stocking cap. So I am just using my pencil to draw it in. I am making a little hot dog shape, right? That's slightly wider than the hat itself. And then I will fussy cut this out. It's the only thing really, aside from the hill, that we're fussy cutting, and it's easy. It does not need to be perfect. It looks a little more organic if it's not perfect, and it's a stocking cap, so that's what it should look like. So I'm going to pull this to my black work surface to hopefully help you see it better, and you can see that little white brim, right? I'm imagining like a fluffy, fuzzy hat. It fits beautifully, right? Slightly whiter than the hat, nothing fancy. Okay, I'm gonna glue that at the edge, and then I'm gonna put that little like glitter ball right at the top. And on this deer, I like to place it so that you can see the little antlers poking up kind of behind the hat. Like somehow magically we managed to get it on there. We have one more piece to assemble before we glue everything down. So we're working with the Shaker birthday candle set, and I have just grabbed the largest present from that set. So it's 2 pieces for the actual present, and I'm doing some really quick and easy ink blending, right? I didn't do anything to the lid. It's just a darker shade of cardstock. And then there are 2 pieces to the bow. So there's the pieces that sort of wrap around the present, and then the actual bow on top. And I added just a little bit of some light teal marker onto that. And then for the bow on top, I started by using just whatever ink was left over on my little brush. And then I'm going to go around the bottoms of the inside of the bow. There are some etched lines from the die, and so I'm going over those a little bit again, and then anywhere where the, like near the knot, where it would be a little darker, I'm sort of flicking out with my marker. Do you need to do this? No, this is so cute all on its own. But because I'm making an ornament and not a card, which to me is a longer term something, like that's a keepsake, I go all out, right? I try to step things up when I think, you know, I'm really hoping this is something somebody loves and keeps. Actually, I think I'm sending this to my sister-in-law in Norway because I love it so much. And I'm going to send her a box anyway, right? This is a hand deliver, or it's something you're going to ship in a box with a present, something like that. So I am just going to glue down my glitter snow on the bottom. Again, those are 4-inch circles. And then I'm trying to get the position of everything before I lay down my sentiments. So I'm going to put happy on top and holidays on the bottom. That same snow globe set also has a Merry Christmas that is really, really pretty. So I've added little dots of glue, and I'm just going to dab it off on the back of my hand to make sure I don't have glue that's going to kind of ooze out the sides. I am real picky about that. I don't like when you can see the glue. I know it dries clear, but I can tell. Next, the bottom piece I'm going to do with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. It doesn't have as fine of a tip, especially mine, because it got clogged and I had to do a little surgery on it. But it's going to grab better on that glitter cardstock. So I'm going to add the holidays with that other glue. Then I'm going to add the hat to my deer. My youngest son was like, no, Mom, it's a reindeer. It's not just a deer. And I'm like, you know what? If he said it is, it definitely is. But like we can't decide. I don't know if it's a porcupine or a hedgehog in that set. He is also stinking cute with a little hat on him. There's an owl, a squirrel, the fox. The fox is beautiful and not a lot of pieces. He comes together super quickly, right? Add any of the animals here and it's going to be adorable. And then I'll add my glue as well. Again, the Deluxe adhesive, just because it's overlapping some of that glitter cardstock. We're going to add this to our rosette that's been drying with some bricks on top of it. If you didn't want to make an ornament, I would use a 4¼ inch die to cut that same sort of dark teal, and I would do 1 circle of that behind our sort of focal point here, and then cut another one maybe out of some white cardstock and just score it, maybe 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch from the top to create a flap on the back so that it opens up like a card. And you could do it that way too. And at 4¼ inches, it'll still fit in an A2 envelope. So this design and these dies are super versatile. I would love to know in the comments below, what non-holiday dies are you using for your holiday cards? How are you getting the most out of your dies? I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you next time.